lovely bookworms, it's Anna, and this is my May wrap-up. May wasn't that great of a reading month, but I still managed to read a couple of books, so let's begin with the first book that I read this month. The first book that I read this month was actually a bind-up of a series, and that bind-up is The Ultimate Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. If you did not know, this was adapted from the radio show that he created. If you aren't familiar with the storyline of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it basically tells the story of Arthur Dent, who is your typical human being. He wakes up one day in his house and finds out there's bulldozers outside that want to tear down his house in order to build a bypass where he's living. He obviously objects to that idea and decides to sit outside of his house and not move because obviously they won't murder him in order to tear down the house. And then his friend called Lord Prefect comes and tells him that he has to come with him to the pub because he has something that he has to tell him. And when they go there, they find out that Earth is getting destroyed. After a couple of minutes, Arthur Dent suddenly finds himself on an alien spaceship after Earth has been destroyed by this alien race because they want to build a galactic highway and Earth is apparently in the way, so it has to be destroyed. From that point on, we basically follow their crazy adventure and we get to learn about the true meaning of the universe, aka 42. I only read about halfway through the bind-up, so I read the first book, which is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and the second book, The Restaurant at the End of the Universe, and I started Life, the Universe, and Everything, and then I decided to put it down. I absolutely loved the first book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I enjoyed how ridiculous the plot was, but at the same time, how well crafted it was as well. And I really enjoyed Douglas's sense of humor. You can even see that all the places where I put a green tab is where I basically laughed out loud while reading this book. The reason that I did put this book down was because A, I didn't like The Restaurant at the End of the Universe as much as The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I was kind of feeling like I'm going into a slump. And the second reason was that because of the fact that I was kind of going into a slump, I felt that I didn't appreciate the story as much in the Life, the Universe, and Everything. And I think that part of that has to do with the fact that after you read, the two books in one go, you get so used to the plot and the way that Douglas tells a story and his sense of humor that you don't truly appreciate it. And while I was still enjoying myself, I felt like if I won't put the book down, I'll get to a place where I'll be very bored with the story, and I did not want that to happen, since I knew that if I'll get back to it, I'll enjoy it once again. So I decided to put this book down, and I'll probably pick it up in June and continue on, just because I wanted to be able to fully appreciate everything that this bind-up has to offer. After that, I read a book that I got for review, which was Room 629 by Vicky Ann Bush. I did a spoiler-free full review for this book, so if you're interested in that, I'm going to leave a link down below in the description box. But basically, I didn't really enjoy this book. I felt like it had lots of potential, but there was still much more work to be done before it could be published and presented to everybody, and that's why I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. It was interesting, it was unique, and at the same time old school kinda, but it really did need a lot of work. And then the hashtag Crush Your TBR readathon and the Ripe Side readathon started, and I read The Miniaturist by Jessie Burden. Yeah, no, I didn't, because when has reading everything but your TBR books ever gotten old? I apparently cannot keep to my TBR at all, and ended up just going into a huge slump, and a big part of that had to do with all of the final projects that I needed to do for school. So I decided to pick up a paranormal romance because I know myself, and when I'm in a slump, the only thing that can truly get me out of it are paranormal romances that are filled with angst and weird characters and magical creatures, and that's the only thing that really helps me. So I wanted to pick up a paranormal romance that was sitting on my shelf for ages, so that when I'll read it, I'll at least feel good with myself. And so I decided to pick up The Circle, which is the first book in the Elfengren trilogy, which is written by Sarah B. Elfengren and Matt Strandberg. If you can't tell, this book was originally written in Swedish and it was later on translated into English. This is a paranormal YA book which centers around a group of teenagers that find out that they basically are the chosen ones after one of their classmates commits suicide, and that they have to save the world from the apocalypse and demons. That obviously sounds like your cliche YA paranormal witches book, doesn't it? But let me tell you, it's nothing like you think it is. I was quite pleasantly surprised by this book. It's extremely different than the YA paranormal romances that are popular today. Basically, it tells the story not as one character that has like this plot, but rather as a kind of documentary of the 6 individual teenagers' lives. We basically live their lives along with them, and through the different events that happen in each individual's lives, we basically get the entire plot of the story, which I found quite unique because the characters themselves were very genuine, and the things that happened to them I felt were very true to what really happens in the real world, which we sometimes don't get in YA paranormal romances. We usually get like exaggerated versions of really like bad lives or really good lives, if you get what I'm saying. And here it was extremely true. I get why some people are saying that this is dark YA, but I don't feel like this is dark YA. I feel like the authors were just comfortable with writing certain scenes that American authors would have skipped over and then hinted at, or would have just shown us the scene after where the two characters are talking about what happened. And I feel like that came from the fact that this was originally written for a Swedish audience, and basically there's probably things that are more acceptable in Sweden to write about than there is in America, or vice versa. I gave this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. After reading that pretty chunky book for the readathon, I wanted to read something that I'll know that I'll be able to get through quickly, so that I'll feel good with myself that I at least didn't read just one book for the right side readathon. And so I picked up the graphic novel Fables. This is the deluxe edition, book 1. And I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed the plot, which follows some of our favorite fairy tale characters as they try to survive in our world after they have been banished from the fairy tale lands, and basically starts with an investigation after Rose Red has apparently been murdered by somebody unknown. I really like the first book that's in this bind-up of the first 2 books because we got a lot of Bigby, if that's how you say his name, scenes, and he's my favorite character out of the cast of characters that we get in this book. And I also really liked the art as well. I felt like it was beautifully drawn and just fun to look at. But the problem that I had, and this usually never happens to me when I read comic books or graphic novels, is that the story itself and the art itself existed on 2 different planes. It didn't become like one running image on the book, which is what usually happens to me when I read graphic novels and comic books, but rather I had to read the text, stop, look at the art, read the text again, and that just kept me from getting really immersed in the story and just kept me from really enjoying myself that much, and that's why I had to give it 3 out of 5 stars. And then I read a book which has to be the worst book I read so far this year, and that is She's Not Invisible by Marcus Sedgwick. I was really excited to read this book since I have heard such great things about his writing, especially in Midwinter Blood. But let me tell you, this book was a disaster. It tells the story of a 16-year-old blind girl whose father is an author and she usually checks his emails. And then one day she comes across an email that informs her that her dad's writing notebook has been found in America. and the last time she spoke to him a couple of days ago, he was in Switzerland, and she basically doesn't understand why her father's writing notebook has been found in America. So she goes to her mom and she asks her, and her mom was busy and she didn't want to answer her really, so she kind of said, don't think about it, don't like talk to me about it right now, just leave it alone. And so she decides in the morning that she is going to kidnap her younger brother because she needs somebody to help her since she can't see, and she's going to go to America, well, to be more specific, New York, in order to find the notebook and thus find her father, who must obviously be in trouble. First of all, I don't think that any 16-year-old girl, doesn't matter if she's blind or not blind, would be so irresponsible and immature to A, think that only her opinion matters and not realize that there must be things between her mom and her dad that she does not know about, B, kidnap her younger brother and fly to New York, and C, have nothing to help them at all. Like, they hardly had any money, they didn't have a place to stay. It was so irresponsible, and overall the voice of the main character felt like she was a 10-year-old, not that she was a 16-year-old in any way. Another thing I didn't like is that while I felt that Marcus was trying to get the message across that people are not only their disabilities with the main character, I felt like the exact opposite message was getting across, because she was trying to rub it into us so much. Like, I'm not invisible, I'm a person. Just because I'm blind doesn't mean that I'm nothing. I'm a complex person. They're trying to shove it down your throat, and it was getting just to a point like, stop. I never wanted to see the character as somebody who was just her disability, just the way that I don't view people with disabilities as just their disabilities. I view them as people, and the fact that the author started the story off from the point that he just presumed that that's the way that the readers see people with disabilities really pissed me off. As well as I felt like it was trying to be a strange book. By that I mean that the book that her father is currently reading has to do with coincidences, and then apparently Marcus Sedgwick made the entire book centered around coincidences in a way that it was trying to be strange and quirky, but it ended up being unbelievable and annoying. So those were all the books I read this month. Hopefully next month will be better. And thank you for watching this wrap up. I'll have another video for you guys soon, so I will see you then. Goodbye!